Welcome to Eurofins Viracor Clinical Diagnostics Podcast, where I'll be sharing up-to-date scientific advances, key diagnostic testing, and our most recent innovations. Welcome to our podcast. This is our fourth year hosting our live in-booth interview show, Transplant Radio. Our aim is to connect with the transplant community, a diverse group that includes professionals, donors, patients, and even doctors who are also recipients. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, you can find our email in the episode summary. Amplify your influence on Transplant Radio. Enjoy episode 4 of our 15-part series.
All right, here we are on August the 3rd, sitting down with Dr. Keith Hansen from Diatiro at the World Transplant Congress 2025. This is Transplant Radio. Amplify your influence or amplify your voice, however you want to say it. So appreciate you taking the time to meet with us and sit down and talk a little bit about what Diatiro does. Really intrigued about the, I call it the kidney koozie, but it's probably not the appropriate term for it. Really ingenious and kind of revolutionary
No, thanks for
device
having me.
out there to help kidneys. Diatiro, as I see from your website, means to preserve, protect, and keep alive over time.
That's correct.
It's very good. So why don't you go ahead and fill in our listeners with a little bit of your background, how you got into this, and I also saw that you have 3 patents under your name.
Yeah, probably a couple more now. So I'm Keith Hansen. I'm a transplant surgeon, actually, with a background in engineering. And I did most of my training in San Francisco here where we're gathered. And we founded Diatiro a few years ago to address the organ shortage and improve transplant outcomes. And come at it as a transplant surgeon, figure out a way to save organs that we're currently saying no to, and then make the organs that we are accepting work better. That was a pretty good introduction of who we are and where we came from. But I learned, I mentioned I was an engineer. I went down to Stanford during my research years of general surgery when I was at UCSF. And I learned a process of medical device development that focuses on clinical needs first and foremost. We were put in clinics, we were put on a team with engineers and designers and others, and they sent us off to nephrology, urology, transplant clinics, ORs to go watch what was happening, and then write down any problems that we saw or things that we could do better.
Good.
And then we whittled down 450 ideas into one, and that's what became Kidney Pod and Diatiro. Our mission was to eliminate the warm ischemic injury that's happening during the sewing process. So after organs come off ice after transportation, while you're sewing them into the recipient, in order to improve the outcomes and allow us to accept organs we're currently saying no to.
Very good. Very good. Let me just see. Looking at your website, I said beforehand just to get a little idea of who you were, what Diatiro does, and such. And looking at your mission, most people have a mission, vision, value statement. What really caught me and made good sense to me is you have your mission statement, but you have your why statement. And I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek, which his books, Find Your Why, Start With Your Why, and such. It's like, that's really cool. And I love, what your why statement boils down to. You're building solutions to protect organs when it matters most during surgery.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that and noticing that. What I learned at Biodesign and the ethos of what we've done with Diatiro is create a company and a product focus on patient needs, clinical needs. Kidney Pod actually starts with a story. When we were doing that, I was standing in the operating room, and I do these surgeries as a transplant surgeon, but I was standing watching another surgeon do this surgery, and the engineer I was with noticed how stressed they'd get when it came time to sew the organ into the patient. They'd start, you'd notice something would change in the operating room, the whole mood. It would get quiet, everyone would get focused, the surgeon would start glancing up at the clock every couple of minutes, and sometimes they'd yell at the surgery resident or the fellow, and I've been on the receiving end of that. I need better from you. And then after the surgery, we'd see patients wake up who'd been on dialysis for 3, 5, 8, 10 years here in the Bay Area, getting their blood exchanged 3 times a week, feeling exhausted all the other days. They'd wake up from the surgery and they were told they had to go back on dialysis. And when we talked to them and we put ourselves in their position, we saw this was scary for them, right? You thought you were going to get a kidney, everything was going to work fine.
Right.
And then we were seeing the surgeons stress. These patients were staying in the hospital longer on dialysis. And it turns out it's not uncommon. So it happens to 1 out of 3 patients who get a kidney transplant. It's called delayed graft function. And the dialysis is temporary most of the time, between 10 days and a month. But if you fall under this bucket of delayed graft function, it has huge impact on how well your kidney is going to work long term. So these patients were staying in the hospital longer, the hospitals were seeing higher costs, they were back on dialysis. But the biggest thing is that once you develop DGF, delayed graft kidney function, your risk of that organ dying 3 to 5 years early shoots way up. And these,
do you have an idea what the percentage is?
Yeah, so about 30% of patients develop delayed graft function. It depends on if you get a living donor or a deceased donor kidney. And then 30% of delayed graft function, it turns out, is due to the warming that's happening in the operating room. So once we made that correlation, this wasn't our data, this is data that's been published by the Eurotransplant cohorts, by the SRTR, by other groups all around the world. People have been noticing that there's something that's going on in the operating room that we'd been missing. And so as we dug into it, it turns out we've been focused on time. The time to procure, the time to transport, the time to implant that organ.
Right.
But we should also be focused on temperature. And that was our insight that led to the creation of Kidney Pod and Diatiro. After we learned all of that, we started working with transplant surgeons all around the world, actually. Started interviewing them. We built a team of designers and engineers that came from Apple and IDEO, had a different approach to how we do product development than most of medtech. And we found out the what, the why, what they needed to prevent the warming that's happening in the operating room. It turns out the average sew-in time for a kidney is 34 minutes. Okay. We're hitting temperatures of 15 degrees Celsius, so around 49 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 minutes into the surgery. And these organs are dying as we sew them in. Now, this is forgetting about the transport period, the procurement period, everything on this is specifically in the operating room we're having this issue. And paper after paper after study after paper have told us that every minute that you spend sewing it in makes a difference with whether you develop delayed graft function and whether you have premature graft failure.
Interesting.
So if we could figure out a way to deal with that, we could say yes to higher risk organs, you could take your time sewing it in, make less mistakes, I wouldn't get yelled at as the resident, and our patients could walk out of the hospital healthier than when they came in. So we started a really 3.5-year process of developing what became the Kidney Pod.
Okay. So the Kidney Pod, if I look at one of the projects started around 2023, actually a bit more, around 2020. So here we're 2025. This has been on the market for how long now?
Yeah, so we're actually even pre-approval. So we have FDA Breakthrough-Device designation, which we got after we started the company in 2022, a few months after we started. What that means is this is a life-saving device that has the potential to have a big impact on patients. Since then, we've been working on our verification, validation, manufacturing, and we've gone through 250 prototypes, over 250 prototypes, and testing with surgeons to get a device that's small, doesn't have any tubing, stays cold for the entire duration of surgery, and makes the surgery easier.
Okay. I mean, and I don't want to dig into IP or anything like that with the product, but give us an overview of how the Kidney Pod achieves keeping the kidney cooler during that sew-in time.
Yeah, sure. So, no, we're happy to talk about all of it. We began, and I'll back up a little bit before I explain that. We weren't the only ones to see all of this data. There has been about 12 academic projects or programs all around the world that have tried to solve the problem of intraoperative warm ischemia, dating back even to the 60s. You can see some patents from there. So many people have tried. The problem is the solutions were failing on 2 counts. Efficacy, they weren't keeping the organ cold for long enough, or usability. They were bulky, they had tubing, they had thread, things that could get caught in the threads that we're sewing with, and a milieu of other things. We figured out that we needed something that was hands-free, fit into your workflow, did not make the surgery harder because you have very tight spaces that you're sewing in. And as a transplant surgeon, I appreciated this. And so what we were able to do was create the Kidney Pod, which uses a combination of aerospace insulation and phase change material. It absorbs heat from the kidney as it transitions from a solid to a liquid state. So if you think about your lunchbox, right, that you put ice pack in,
Right.
one of those blue ice packs, we have a medical grade version of that we've coupled with aerospace insulation to create a very thin profile that surrounds the kidney. It's a one-size-fits-all device. It's been designed for open surgery as well as the future of transplantation, which is robotic surgery. It's small, it doesn't get in the way, and it actually makes the surgery easier. It has a lanyard on the top that your assistant can use in order to sew in, or to free up the hands of your assistant.
Well, let me take a quick break. For those listening, you hear the crinkling of plastic. Keith is opening up one of the presentation packages for the kidney pod to demonstrate it to us.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. We have thought through every single step of this workflow, and that part of that comes from our designers, engineers, and our focus on human-centered design. So how are surgeons and nurses and scrub techs and all that gonna interact with this device from start to finish? It comes to you sterile, single-use, and it comes out of the freezer. As you open it up, there's actually a card in here that we give to the nurses where they can record the anastomosis time, the sew-in times, and make their life easier as they go through the surgery. You're then met by two cool beans. And if you want to describe to listeners, this is kind of a piece of plastic with some liquid inside that's pink in color.
Kind of looks like a silly putty, but or a oh gosh, the word escapes me. The materials
Kind of like slime.
that are liquid, but if you step on them, it actually provides cushion and resistance to it. There's
like
a fancy name for it. I can't remember what it is right now.
So when this is in the freezer, this actually changes to a dark blue color to let you know it's ready for use. And it extends, we're calling them thermal batteries, it extends the amount of time that the kidney pod can sit out on your table before you're ready to sew it in.
Okay. So it's a thermochromic type of material where
Exactly.
it gets cold, it's blue, so you know it's at the proper temperature.
Right.
Then as your anastomosis occurs, it starts changing color to a pinkish, so they know that, hey, this is starting to warm up, we're losing a bit of the efficacy, maybe step it up a little bit.
Right, that's exactly right.
Okay.
This color change, though, you get to see all of this before you put the kidney in, before you do your sew-in. It's basically a form of validation that the kidney pod is ready for use and that it's been properly frozen.
It's very, very good tool to have.
Yeah, because like I said before, I mean, we're focused on time, but we forget to think about temperature, and it turns out temperature has a much bigger impact on delayed graft function rates and overall organ function than the time alone. Time is a surrogate for temperature, but this allows us to actually think about temperature from the get-go. You slide the kidney into the kidney pod then, and when you look at the kidney pod, there's a lot of markers that show you which way the ureter needs to go.
Okay.
So the very first kidney that was ever sewn was sewn in backwards, and since then it's happened multiple times. So we make it very clear which way the ureter is. We have a U on one side, an arrow on the other, and a sticker on the inside, and it's all kind of lime green. And then on the other one, it has another thermochromic marker that tells you that the phase change material inside the kidney pod is actively working, another form of validation. You put the kidney inside, you flip these top shell into the bottom shell, and then use the straps in order to wrap around the kidney pod and stick the artery and the vein out of the bottom.
Very good.
This forms as a sort of shield, and what we're able to do is keep the organ at 4 degrees Celsius, 39 degrees Fahrenheit for over an hour.
That's amazing.
That's the kidney pod. Now, the device is cool and the team has done a good job, but the reason we did this was we seem to have figured out a way to save organs, improve the outcomes of organs that we're currently transplanting. Based on, we published economics and Markov models on this. We think we could get 5,000 patients off of dialysis after their transplant. We can save 2,500 kidneys that are currently being thrown away. We can save the healthcare system $2 billion every year based on the amount of dialysis we can avoid and by getting patients off of dialysis.
And there's the added cost to the patient when they go on dialysis post-surgery.
Exactly.
I think off the website I saw it was something around $20K.
Yeah. That's for that hospitalization alone. Dialysis is between $80 and $100K every single year. So as we save organs, we surveyed members of the American Society of Transplant Surgery. With my background in surgery, we talked to everyone. We got about 200 responses, and what we found was surgeons were willing to, they knew warming was an issue. They wanted kidney pod post-clearance, but they were willing to say yes. 4 out of 5 surgeons said they'd say yes to organs that they would otherwise say no to. Higher risk organs with multiple arteries, organs that they were kind of on the hook on, or if they had a really obese patient that they were worried about the sewing time to. 4 out of 5 surgeons said they'd accept organs they're currently saying no to.
Excellent.
And that means patients are getting off of that dialysis of $100,000 a year.
That is fantastic. Well, I really don't have any more questions, so I'm going to open up the floor and let you talk about what you want to talk about.
Because I haven't talked enough.
Get any more information out there, because I am a believer in just sitting down with you here for a few minutes.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. I started out, I'm a medical technologist by training, so spent time in the lab, but then part of it is I helped start up the laboratory aspect of kidney transplants at university in the Kansas City area, and did first 27 liver transplants with them. And so you're talking about that change in aura or feeling in the surgery suite when stuff starts to get sewn back in and like that, and you just it becomes very, I don't want to say thick, but you can feel the tension just build. And the whole demeanor changes and like this. One thing I always enjoyed when I was doing that, I mean, besides working with the team, because fantastic people, very knowledgeable, very passionate about what they do. But one thing that made me chuckle was the choice of music being played during surgery.
Oh gosh.
What's your go-to song or your go-to genre?
Yeah, that's funny, because we just had a TikTok go viral for this at the University of Colorado, where they asked surgeons what they listen to. I actually listen to electronic dance music, sometimes deep house, but something that's got a beat in it and it keeps you going throughout the case. That's what I listen to nowadays. And I had a lot of fans online and a lot of people who were like, that's crazy. So it just depends. What would you listen to?
I am more of a classical guy. Mm-hmm. I just like the intricacy of the classical music, but then also, being a little bit of an audiophile, it's looking at the evolution of those songs. And it's like, you hear something nowadays, it's like, wait a minute, that reminded me of this.
Yeah.
Then I go back and I find that. It's like, oh, wait a minute, now that reminded me of this. And you just start digging through the archives and like this. And that's one of the fun things I had when my kids were younger and they'd be traveling in the car with me. They're like, oh, listen to this new song from so-and-so. I'm like, oh, that's cool, but wait a minute. Okay, here's the previous version. Here's the version before that.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're weird, Dad. Let's stop and get something to drink,
Yeah.
Something to eat. But
I'd love to have you in the OR mixing, telling us the history of the music.
Oh, that's fantastic. Any other projects you're working on or like that? Because you're kind of working with a consortium of Catalyst Group and like that?
Yeah, so that's actually one of the cool things about Kidney Pod and Diatiro. So I was a UCSF surgery resident, and we've been supported by hospitals and surgeons. This was a company and a team that was designed by surgeons for surgeons to treat patients and improve outcomes. And so UCSF and Stanford both supported us significantly early on. Stanford Medicine has invested in the company of Diatiro and helped develop Kidney Pod from the get-go. And it was actually one of a really good example of, I don't even want to say industry, it was like academic collaboration for innovation in order to prop up a device, get beyond this kind of this valley of death that most academic projects that are focused on translating to clinical outcomes go through. And then since then, we're now supported by John Lasseter, who is the former founder of Pixar. And we have a large group of investors and supporters who believe in our mission of doing things differently for patients with a focus on human-centered design.
Perfect. And I think also it's very important that, it's not one person's idea of saying, this is what we need, this is what it must be. It's a collaborative effort through a very diverse group of people putting their input in, saying, okay, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm seeing. You said 400 plus ideas distilled down into one product that's out on the market. seems to be doing well from what I've been reading and hearing. And I wish you all the success.
Thanks, Kevin.
I don't have any more questions for you. Any closing words you've got or anything you want to add?
This has been an absolute pleasure. We're a big fan of all the work that you guys are doing. And
Why don't you go ahead and share the website? I know you guys are kind of in stealth mode right now.
Yeah. Well, now you can just Google Kidney Pod or go to diatirohealth.com, diatirohealth.com. This is actually our big coming out, so we're out of stealth. And we're happy to work with anyone who's interested in improving patient outcomes and making everyone's lives better.
Perfect. Well, pleasure meeting you.
Yeah,
Best
thanks,
of
Kevin.
luck.
Thank you so
Really
much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you much.
Make sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow us on social media to stay up to date on all the latest information. If you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your friends and colleagues to subscribe too. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Podbean, and more. With over 40 years of diagnostic innovation and specialized expertise in infectious disease, pre- and post-transplant, allergy and immunology testing for immunocompromised and critical patients, Eurofins ViraCore is committed to helping medical professionals, transplant teams, and reference labs get results faster when it matters most. ViraCore is passionate about delivering value to our clients by providing timely, actionable information, never losing sight of the connection between the testing we perform and the patients you serve.